I wanted to welcome you to this one part of Paradise Stories. As you can hear and see, there's a lot going on in this space. I'm the artist, and I don't really like to use the word curator because there's a lot of connotations with that word that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, but I've decided to create a show under the title of Paradise Stories because I've been in Liverpool for a year. My work spans video to sculpture to live performance, and I'm fascinated by how people try and lead their lives in modern life and what this idea of paradise is really. And so because I've been to Liverpool and I was born in Chester, my folks live across the water, and the idea of paradise intrinsically meaning to me, you know, how do we try and be happy in our lives? And the fact of stories came in because I was interested in trying to get to know Liverpool after about 20 years of departure, and to get to know the people in the city and give back to what's essentially a big year for Liverpool, the capital of culture. But also to get to know the city in terms of the transformation and, you know, how people live, the different areas, the communities across the different boroughs, you know, beyond 2000 today, which I think is also a very hyped up year, you know, and perhaps for the people who live in it, the changes are different from how that's perceived by fleeting tourists or media generated profiles of the city. So this is the international side. I call it the international side because all the artists I've selected, there's 8 artists in this space. I went through a process of putting a call out for work, which meant that I sent a global brief out across the internet, across publications, to find people, to find artists who are dealing with this notion of paradise, which is such a broad, you know, idea, and to invite them to send me their ideas. As a result, after about 200 applications and proposals, I selected these works purely on the information I read and the images I saw on the email. So you can imagine that when you actually get the work, it's a very different experience. Now, the reason why I think it's quite important to go into quite a bit of detail before you have a look around is because, you know, so this is one part of the exhibition and it's half of another part which is completely my work, which is run in the venue rooms, and you'll see that shortly after this space. I think what you'll find is a very large contrast between the two venues in terms of the nature of the work and also in terms of the spacing perhaps and the site. You know, if you look at this building, you think about, you know, it's cold in here, you know, it's got concrete floor. Compare this to the venue rooms. Also, you'll find quite a few similarities in the fact that, you know, I really champion people not to just come in and look at a piece that's stuck to the wall, but to somehow integrate with the work itself. So, for example, I'll just take 2 pieces. If we look at the piece at the back, this was called Shadowlands, and it's known as a shadow tracing event. Now, the artist proposed to me a white room with a ball hanging in the middle and 2 paintbrushes. And what really spoke to me, apart from the simplicity of this work, was the fact that, you know, it depended on you to make the work. So you'll end up with paint on yourself if you have a go, but the idea is to trace each of the shadows. And you might not know who the person you're tracing the shadow of, but it's time invested with each other, with a paintbrush on a long pole, you know, and it's hopefully an enjoyable experience. Another piece, for example, you'll see this on the wall, this was a piece by Pastor Wimberly, and he took art out into the street on the opening night, and also for the past 2 weeks, Casper's been going out on the street and getting people to take part in this, what he calls a line of sight. And looking at that wall, I mean, you're probably thinking, oh, what the hell does that mean? It's a map with some string on it. The string is correlated to where he invited people to stand around the city, just very nearby around this vicinity. And he asked people to set their watches, and at a specific time they looked in certain directions, and this actually created a feeling of solidarity and a line of sight, which in everyday life we often try and avoid because we're too busy looking at our feet, texting on our mobile phones, walking into lampposts, which is what I do when I'm trying to do all three, and just that connection which is difficult to find in everyday life. I think that's enough from me right now. I would really love you to go and explore the space, and then we can come back together, and if you've got any questions, and also I think Stephen and Laurel, you could perhaps talk about your work after you've just had some time to take it all in and, you know, just to absorb it really.
I'm sure that's not good. I know that I keep meaning to change it.
Okay, there we go.
That looks like a drunk.
We'll fit together forever, John.
Why don't you try and get yourself on the ceiling?